Learning Zili Nishmas Etta Ahuva Yaakov Masech Nedarim Perek Tes Mishna Yud Koinem She'eni Noise Es Plainis Kura. If someone makes a neder that I'm not going to marry a certain woman who is ugly, Varehina, and turns out that she is beautiful, Shechira, I'm not going to marry her because she is black, darker. Varehi Levena, turns out she's white. Kitsara, he says he's not going to marry her because she's short. Varehi Arucha, and it turns out she's really tall. Mutterba, loy mimnei shehi kura v'natzis no shechayr v'natzis lavana kitzar v'natzis harucha elasha neder tois. So the Tanakama held that over here is a neder b'tois, and therefore you don't need sheila to chacham. He made the neder that he's not going to marry because of a certain fact, and the fact came out that was not true, and therefore the neder is not chal me'ikar, and he's allowed to marry her. The Mishnah says umaisa be'echad, and the Gemara speaks out that it's a chsuri mechsav achikatani. We first have to be makdim that Rabbi Shmuel argues on this, and he holds that even if at the time he made this neder she was taka ugly, and then afterwards she became beautiful, even in that case he is allowed to marry her. And on that we say maisa be'echad shenadar mibas hachoisa aniya. There was a story that someone said that he's not going to marry his niece, v'chnisul lebeis Rabbi Shmuel, and they brought her into the house of Rabbi Shmuel, v'yefua, and he made her beautiful. She was so poor that she wasn't able to make herself pretty, and he made her very pretty. Amar loy Rabbi Shmuel, b'ni lezuna dartos. Rabbi Shmuel asked him, is this the person, now that she's so beautiful, is this the person you didn't want to marry because she was ugly? Amar loy, lav. No, this is not the person. V'yetiru Rabbi Shmuel, and Rabbi Shmuel said he can marry her. So Rabbi Shmuel argued and held that even though b'shas the neder she was taka ugly, it's mutter. The Ran explains because he held that you could be paischin be noilad. So even though this is considered noilad because b'shas he made the neder she was ugly and now she's beautiful, so the Tanakama held ein paischin b'noilad. Rabbi Shmuel argued and said you could be paischin b'noilad. The Rush says that since he was able to make her beautiful is a raya that originally Shitaka wasn't so ugly, and therefore the neder was not chal, and he is allowed to marry her. The Mishnah continues, Oisa Shah Bachar Rabbi Shmuel cried, V'amar b'nois Yisrael nois hein elashanias min avlas. And you see that all Jewish girls are really beautiful, but because they were poor, they weren't able to make themselves beautiful. Ukshemais Rabbi Shmuel was nifter. B'nai Yisrael noisis kina. The B'nai Yisrael cried. They were very sad now that Rabbi Shmuel was nifter because he stuck up for them and he made them beautiful. V'oimris, and they would say B'nai Yisrael el Rabbi Shmuel b'kina. They were crying on him, on his death. V'chein hu oimer b'shal. The same thing when Shaul was nifter, the B'nai Yisrael were crying on Shaul because, and that's what the pasuk says, B'nai Yisrael el Shaul b'kina, because the end of the pasuk says Hama bishchem shani madonim, that he would get them dressed in nice clothes and jewelry. So now that he was nifter, they were crying. They were all sad. Perek Yod Mishnah Aleph Naira Hamairasa Avio Baila Mefir Nedarim. So we learned in Maseches Ksuvas that a father is able to be Mefer Nedarim, not to be confused with Hataras Nedarim, which we learned in the previous parts of this Masechta. When you go to a Chacham and he finds a Pesach and he says that the neder is not Chal Meikara, Hafaras Nedarim is the neder Avada was Chal, but Mikana Lahaba. So a father is able to be Mefer the neder of his child, and the same thing, a husband is able to be Mefer the neder of his wife, and that works on the day that they hear the neder. They have to say that they don't approve of the neder, they're made for the neder, and therefore the mikana laba, the neder is batal. But a naira ma'irasa, so she's 12 years old, and she has shtei cyrus, and so for the next 6 months she's called a naira, and if she had erisin, kedushin, without nisuin with someone, so then she is birshus both of them. She's birshus the father and birshus her husband, legabi hafaras nedarim, and therefore, in order for her neder to be hufer, they both have to agree, they both have to be mevatal b'yom shamam. Aviu baila mefir nedareh. But together they could be mefer. But if only one did it, hefer av v'lefer abal, hefer abal v'lefer av, einay mufer, then it's not considered mufer. If one of them approved of the neder, they heard of the neder and they agreed to it, so then the other one's hafara can't help. So as soon as one of them is mekayim it, then the neder is mekuyim and they can no longer be hufer.